Hi everyone, it's Lit Lessons with GCSE memes once again for you today, looking at A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, but today looking at the character of Ghost of Christmas Future, thinking about its characterisation, its key extracts, and why these exist, why it is presented this way as well. So before we do any of that, there'll be a little bit of a recap of this character, who they are. Before then we look at these key sections, the three key sections and three things I think are important to remember about this figure. So, first of all then, who is the Ghost of Christmas Future? So, the final ghost who visits Scrooge. He's the last one to pay the character a visit. And ultimately that leaves responsibility with them to make Scrooge change. Okay, and obviously we know that it's successful at doing that because of what Scrooge is like in the chapter following, the final chapter. It is also what we would call a harbinger. Now, this is a type of ghost that Charles Dickens wrote about a couple of times. And a harbinger is a type of ghost that essentially predicts a dark future. Okay, and there's actually a certain type of harbinger that predicts a dark future that is changeable if the person being haunted is happy to change their behaviour or ways. Okay, so that rings quite nice and true with Scrooge. Obviously, it bears similarity to the personification of death and the Grim Reaper, and I don't think that is a mistake by Charles Dickens whatsoever. Okay, but the Grim Reaper, for those of you who don't know, is basically the collector of souls of people whose time on Earth is up, and essentially. Once the Grim Reaper takes that person's soul, they die. And I think it's really important, if you want to get higher marks for context, if you're mentioning any of the ghosts, not just the Ghost of Christmas Future, you talk about the fact that Charles Dickens was a writer of a lot of ghost stories. And I'm going to include in the description today a video version of the Signalman by Charles Dickens, and also a text version, which is essentially another story about a harbinger who warns the narrator in that story of some terrible train accidents that are about to occur. So Dickens was used to writing ghost stories and very good at it and very successful at it as well. And that's why he does such a successful job of producing the Ghost of Christmas Future. So let's have a look then at three key things to remember about the Ghost of Christmas Future. And the first thing we'll need to remember, of course, is its appearance. Now, I'm going to give you a section here which I've already underlined a few things for. And as we go over these things, just obviously it's up to you whether you make those notes about it as I talk you through them. So first of all, this is the opening description of Ghost of Christmas Future in this chapter. And it is described by a triadic list in slowly, gravely, silently, which is a very, very eerie, creepy description of the way with which it moves. And it makes it more and more sinister as it seems to drift around without making a sound. And certainly that seems to be the effect it has on Scrooge, who himself appears and quite petrified of it in every version that I've seen and in the text itself, of course. It is also wearing a deep black garment. Now there's obvious connotations there with black being a symbol of death and darkness and uncertainty, but also I think if you want to hit the higher marks you need to mention the fact that we don't see its face or actual form. It is essentially the unknown, which for human beings is the most terrifying thing of all. But as well as that, remember it is a symbol of the future, and like the future, its face and its appearance is unknown. Both these things, the future and the ghost itself, are unknown to Scrooge, are unknown in our own lives as well. So I think there is a different meaning. It's not just about it being creepy, we can't see its face, but also the fact that it's meant to represent like something that we can't see, our futures. As well as this, the ghost seems to be making everything darker, but do consider this. Is this just an omen for Scrooge's future? Would a different Ghost of Christmas yet to come appear to someone with a brighter future? I'm of the opinion that I think they would. Yes, a different version would. But the reason we have such a dark, ominous Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come is because unless Scrooge changes, he is in for a very dark and suffering future indeed. As well as this, we have this last section here, that the idea of the ghost having no dialogue whatsoever. He is non-communicative, and the fact that he is, again, makes him enigmatic, a mystery. Again, adding to that level of fear, as we truly cannot identify or communicate or have any connection with this thing. So that's its appearance kind of summarised for you. Let's have a look now more at its actions. And its actions are best described in these sections here. So first of all, there's this description of it appearing to fix its ghostly eyes upon Scrooge. The idea of him having fixed eyes on Scrooge shows its power over Scrooge, that it's able to essentially look right through him and judge him. But he is also not taking his sight off the man. And this idea of him doing that suggests that he has the ability to manipulate Scrooge any way he wants. As well as that, we have these sections here. And the fact it gives no reply, once again, shows you its creepiness, but also means that Scrooge has to make up assumptions based on what, quite simply, the ghost is pointing and gesturing at. And this allows Scrooge actually to make judgments for himself and learn independently from what he is being shown by the ghost. But that is essentially the big thing about his actions, the fact that he continuously points at things. It's a demanding gesture that basically tells Scrooge to make his own mind up and make the right decision about what he's being shown. So, that's its actions pretty much summarise what it does. Let's have a think now of its effect on Scrooge. Okay, that's why it's there. It's there to have an effect on our protagonist. And again, I've pre-selected some sections that I've underlined here we're going to go through. So first of all, there's this repetition of Scrooge trembling whilst in the presence of this phantom, as it's described here. Again, a lovely word to describe this thing, not just a ghost. This idea of it being a phantom is this idea of it being kind of really dark and ominous once again. This idea of it trembling immediately shows us how terrifying this ghost is. As well as that, we have Scrooge bravely challenging the ghost and shows his desperation that these things may be changed, these futures might be changed that he's shown. And this is basically showing us that the ghost has been successful in getting Scrooge to change his ways. The fact that he stands up to this of all the ghosts really does truly show his desperation and his bravery and his determination to change the way he is. And unfortunately for Scrooge, that doesn't change the fact that the ghost continues to show him his neglected grave. He wants to hammer home that message that he needs to change or his future will be incredibly bleak indeed. And there's a myriad of emotions, of course, that Scrooge feels throughout this text, but here they are feelings of shame that no one cares about him after his death, of fear that he is going to die sooner than he should if he doesn't change his way, and his desperation and depression at causing kind of not only suffering on himself at the end, but suffering on the Cratchits and Tiny Tim. These are all emotions provided by this ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. So those are the three key things that I would focus on: his appearance, its actions, and its effect on Scrooge. Once you've considered those and made notes on those, as I have here for you, have a go at a question. And here's a question that I would recommend you have a go at. Explore how the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come is presented in Stay Forward. I've given you some different words to use there to describe. Please, please, please don't just say, oh, he's terrifying. It's terrifying all the way throughout, because that's not going to get you very many marks indeed. Think about a range of points that you can make. I will give you the full text in the description as always to have a go at that. And here's our meme for today. The meme for today is quite easy because there's lots of memes on Grim Reaper and on death. But what I thought I'd do is I'd include some references to one of my favourite film versions, the Muppets version. But this is essentially what would have happened had Scrooge not changed. But he learns his lesson after all, as we know. As always, please comment in below anything else that you would like me to cover, any memes you'd like me to use. Like and subscribe to the page if you haven't already, and check out our Instagram page listed there as well. Thank you.